hello and welcome today. So, if you don't know me, my name is Michele and I have my doctorate in physical therapy, and I'm an online personal trainer and health coach. And today we're going to be talking about gut health, and I have a special expert here with us today to give us some more details and really dive deeper into this topic. So, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jillian. I am a registered dietitian who specializes in gut health. So I see clients for all sorts of different gut health symptoms, digestive issues, things like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, colitis, any sort of, those frustrating gut symptoms like bloating, bathroom issues, embarrassing gas, all the things. And I really help my clients get to the root cause of what's causing those imbalances in the first place so that we can address those and get them feeling so much better and optimize their health. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Yeah, I love that because I think gut health is so vital. And when you're working with people who maybe even have chronic pain or autoimmune issues, a lot of times it goes back to your gut health.
Oh, big time. And I mean, over 70% of our immune system is within our gut. So, anytime we're talking about any sort of autoimmunity, inflammation, imbalances with the immune system, we have to first go to the gut and figure out what's going on at the level of the gut because that is impacting so many of other things. I know we were kind of chatting before we started recording here, and I was sharing that, I really see clients for their gut health, but because the gut is truly the center of all health, poor gut health can really bleed into other areas of the health, like issues with metabolism, inflammatory issues, hormonal imbalances. So, really addressing the gut is such a great place to start anytime we're really looking to just feel better in our whole body.
Yeah, definitely. So, what are some of the common foods you find that irritate the gut?
Yes. All right. Let's see. I would say number one big one that I see a lot in my practice are things like sugar alcohols. This can be a really just great place for people to start. It's kind of why I like to start off with sharing this one. It's a very tangible thing that people can start looking for on ingredients lists, and making this simple little shift to stay away from those can be really helpful and make a big difference if you do struggle with some digestive symptoms. So, if you struggle with things like bloating or gas or bathroom issues, whether that be a lot of loose stools or the opposite, and you're feeling really constipated, starting to read ingredients lists for sugar alcohols. So, some examples of what sugar alcohols are things like xylitol, sorbitol, erythritol, malitol. So, any of those that end in all, the OL, they're typically what I tell my clients start looking at ingredients lists and avoid those whenever possible. Some of the big culprits of those are kind of like our health foods. And I'm doing quotes on those if someone's just listening to this with the audio. Things like protein powders, energy bars, protein bars. And the reason being is these sugar alcohols, they are manufacturers can use them because they'll sweeten up the products to make them taste good without adding a bunch of sugar. So it makes the nutrition label look really sexy, right? Because you can say no sugar, no added sugars, but those sugar alcohols can be really hard on the gut. And if you're somebody who struggles with gut issues, sugar alcohols can be super, super tough. So that's a big one and an easy one that you can start kind of looking at. Another big one is alcohol. So as we know, alcohol can be really disruptive to the environment of our gut. It can really bump up in inflammation, which can kind of cause just a whole bunch of other issues. It can feed a lot of the bad bacteria in the gut, which can lead those to overgrow, causing more symptoms. So I'd say alcohol is another big one to start, just being mindful of your intake. And if you do struggle with a lot of gut issues, maybe try cutting back and see how your body responds to that. And I would say another big one could be gluten. So I say gluten because I know there's so many questions on gluten, and maybe people have heard before if you have gut issues to cut out gluten, and they're wondering if there's validity to that, if it's appropriate for them. With my clients, I do a lot of testing. So I'm actually testing the gut through stool testing, poop testing, and seeing what's going on inside of the gut. And I am checking for gluten sensitivity. But if, somebody's listening to this and you're not really ready to invest in testing yet, trying out cutting out gluten for about 3 to 6 months can be really helpful because gluten can be really damaging to the lining of the gut, and it can cause issues with your immune system, increase inflammation. So that can be another supportive thing to pull out and see if your body responds well.
Yeah, I love that. So going back to the sugar,
Yeah.
um, so do you also recommend that people don't eat sugar or eat a lot of sugar?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So if people aren't eating sugar and they can't eat the fake sugars, is there something like you recommend to sort of get that
Yeah.
sweet tooth?
Yeah. So I would say sugar doesn't need to be cut out completely, sugar in moderation. So not overdoing it. I would say cut out completely the sugar alcohols, get those out completely, but sugar in moderation is totally fine. Now, if you're overdoing it on sugar, of course, that's just not good for our overall health. You know, as most of us know, we shouldn't eat sugar breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day, every day, because just overall health, it doesn't really fall in alignment with that. But especially if you do have a lot of gut issues, sugar can feed that bad bacteria and kill off the good bacteria. So you'll start to get some imbalances and have too much of the bad, too little of the good. There's also, I work with a lot of clients who struggle with candida overgrowth. Candida is a yeast that can overgrow in the body and cause a lot of gut symptoms. Can also kind of go back to what you were saying, a lot of those like the joint pains, the inflammation, that can sometimes be symptoms of a candida overgrowth. So of course you want to test to make sure this is applicable for you, but candida feeds off of sugars. So if you are somebody who's struggling with this, pulling added sugars out of the diet for the time being can be really, really helpful so that you're not, feeding this candida while you're also trying to get rid of it. So sugars in moderation. Also, I would say being mindful of added sugars. And so, there's a difference between just sugars and then added sugars. And what I typically recommend for my clients is don't be afraid of all sugar. Not all sugar is bad. For example, fruit, I think fruit is amazing. It has so many great vitamins and minerals and fibers. I am not worried about the sugar in fruits, but a bunch of like added sugars, if you're buying, let's just take, for example, coffee creamer with a lot of added sugars in there. That's kind of an area where I can work with clients and say, hey, let's switch to a different coffee creamer, for example, that doesn't have as much of those added sugars, and just try to cut it down where you can.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think for a lot of people, cutting sugar out is hard. And then they try to switch to the sugar alternatives, which aren't great either. So I think slowly adjusting your taste buds and,
Yeah.
still doing fruit and those other sweet things can be helpful.
Absolutely. And, my opinion, and for my clients, I really do recommend going with the real deal over sugar alternatives. Those sugar alternatives are a lot harder on the gut. And if you need something, go for the real deal. I also really like Splenda and monk fruit. Those are more natural sugar. They come from a plant. They're not artificially made in a lab like some of the other artificial sweeteners can be. So monk fruit, stevia, those can be really helpful. And then, yeah, using, dates to sweeten things up, different fruits, maybe doing like a little bit of pure maple syrups and pure honey can also be some alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Because I think sometimes when you're trying to improve your health, um, I know you had said the health foods that we think are healthy, like someone might do keto and then they get these like keto balls that have the fake sugars in it. And so it's like really important to not replace something with something that's not better just because you think you're doing it. So really to look at those labels and really think about what you're doing is huge.
Yes, absolutely. And learning how to read a nutrition label and those ingredients list, it really is such an empowered tool to have, because then you can have confidence going in and going to a grocery store, picking out some foods, knowing how to, turn it around and look at the ingredients list and kind of spot some of those things that maybe you can find a better option for.
Yeah, I love that. So what foods help to improve your gut?
Yes. Okay. So first and foremost is fiber. So fiber is our friend. We all know we need to be eating our fruits and vegetables. And so much of that is because you're getting a lot of fiber with those fruits and vegetables. The fiber is the things that are going to feed your good gut bacteria. So we have to make sure that we're getting in plenty of fiber so that we can feed this gut bacteria and get all the benefits of having a healthy gut. And in the typical American diet, we're just not getting enough fiber. You know, you think back to ages ago, to our ancestors, the caveman eras, they were eating a lot of fiber. They were eating a lot of plant foods, lots of berries. And nowadays, it's just not really the case. You know, we have a much more reliance on convenience foods, packaged foods, and a lot of those have been kind of stripped from their fiber. And so we're not getting the benefits that our guts need to really thrive. Maybe that's a piece to why we see such an uptake with gut issues and digestive symptoms nowadays, is just because we're not eating the diet to support our gut health. So making sure you're getting in plenty of fruits and vegetables. What I recommend is getting in at least a cup of veggies every meal if you can. What I tell clients sometimes is, you know, for breakfast, sometimes my clients are like, I don't want to eat vegetables for breakfast. Then I say, okay, great, get some fruit in then. At least have some fruits. You can still get some fiber in at breakfast as well. And I say, you know, aim for about a cup. If you are picturing it on your plate, about half of your plate to be filled with those colorful fruits and vegetables, choosing different kinds of fruits and vegetables, so different colors, you're going to get a wider range of benefits. You're going to increase the diversity of your gut bacteria if you increase the diversity of the plant foods that you're eating. Number one, those fibers are going to be your best friend and you're trying to support your gut. Number two, fermented foods, so things like fermented yogurt, some sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi. These are foods that have beneficial bacteria in them. So they have probiotics in them, which are the living bacteria. So when we eat those foods, you're bringing that good bacteria into your gut and helping out your gut health and growing those species of good bacteria.
Yeah, I love that. So even as I work with clients from sort of a weight loss, health, metabolism way, I mean, I think fiber is one of the first things we work on because people just typically aren't getting enough, you know, from a health standpoint, and not only how it helps their gut. So I love that you said that. So as a registered dietitian, is there like, can somebody get too much fiber? We'll assume they're going up slowly and not doing like a big jump, but I mean, like, would you say you can eat too many fruits or vegetables or too much fiber?
Such a good question. And I love that you brought up increasing it gradually. That is really important, especially if you don't typically eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Going whole hog and being like, okay, Jillian said have half my plate be fruits and veggies, so I'm going to go in, you know, cold turkey on that. That can cause a lot of like bloating or gas because it can be a lot of food all at once for that gut bacteria, and they're going to feast on that food, and in turn that can make you feel a little bit more bloated, a little uncomfortable. So increase it gradually. If you're not doing a lot of fruits and vegetables right now, focus on just one meal to get them in and slowly increase that over time. I would not be afraid of eating too much fruits and vegetables. What could happen is it could be a little bit of constipating. So if you're eating a lot of fiber, maybe you start to notice that you're getting a little constipated, you're not going every single day. If that's the case, bump up your water intake. If you increase your vegetable and your fruit intake, you want to bump up your water intake anyway to prevent any sort of constipation. So bump up the water. I don't typically see, other than being a little bit backed up, people eating too much fruits and veggies and getting negative side effects to it. I think just in the American diet, we're not eating enough anyway. So, you know, I'm never worried of like overdoing it there. Where you can overdo it is if you're doing like a fiber supplement. So sometimes people will have like a powdered fiber supplement that they can add to smoothies or into water. That is like a very concentrated source of fiber. So that you can potentially overdo it and get really constipated, get gut issues going on, and just not be feeling too well. If you're doing whole fruits and vegetables, not too worried about overdoing it.
Yeah, I love that. 'Cause I'm like, you can pretty much always eat more. Like,
Yes,
you're going to
let's
be
keep
okay.
adding it.
Yeah. And I love how, you know, you sort of gave that visual of like half your plate veggies, because I think we're so used to the food pyramid. I know it's different now. The one I saw with the kid was the triangle, and the bottom was basically like refined carbs. So
We've
we
come
just
a long
always,
way from that.
yeah, we just always think we need like more carbs or bread or pasta, sort of the base. And really it should be flipped of those. Veggies
Yeah.
should be the base.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm glad that that food pyramid, I mean, it's since been kind of like outdated, right? That's kind of the old way of doing things. And luckily now they brought in, the USDA has what's called MyPlate. And MyPlate, it's actually a visual of having a plate. And I think that's much better to go off of because it does kind of give you approximate distributions of how your different food groups should fit on your plate, having most of it be the vegetables, quarter of it being some grains, and then the other quarter being your protein versus that food pyramid, which was a lot of refined carbs. I'm glad that's kind of been outdated now.
Yeah. So what would you say are supplements that heal the gut, and sort of when should somebody use those, and what are those best ones?
Yes. So when it comes to the world of supplements, very personalized. It really is going to differ from person to person. But in general, what I recommend number one is getting started on a good magnesium supplement. Magnesium is so, so important. It is really great for number one, mental wellness, reducing stress and anxiety, which when we're talking about gut health, that gut brain connection is so powerful. And I work a lot with my clients on reducing stress and anxiety and bringing in some restorative relaxation practices, because that is what your gut needs to heal. If you're always in fight or flight, your gut's not going to be healed and you're still going to be feeling not so great. So magnesium is really great for relaxing the mind. It's also really great for improving our sleep. It's really important for making sure you're going to the bathroom every day. So if you're not pooping every day, you are constipated. You got to make sure that you're going every single day. So taking a good daily magnesium supplement is great for that. The form matters when it comes to magnesium though. So if you ever go to, like a grocery store and you're looking in the supplement section, there's so many different types of magnesium. There's magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide. The kind that I recommend to all my clients, it's called magnesium glycinate. And that one is the best absorbed. So it's going to be helped absorbed into the body. It's going to help relax things, which is going to help you go to the bathroom more easily. And it's better tolerated. Some magnesium supplements can make you feel more bloated. And magnesium glycinate, since it's absorbed so well, it doesn't make you bloated. So the Miracle Worker from Gut Personal, that's the brand. That's the other side of the company that I work for, and I'm the lead dietitian. We have a magnesium called the Miracle Worker, which is just magnesium glycinate. So that's the one that I use with my clients because it works really well. It absorbs well, so it doesn't cause any issues. So magnesium is great. Another one is I do think probiotics have their time and place and that they are very beneficial. Kind of my caveat to that is if you have a lot of gut issues, if you've been struggling with gut issues for a long time, I don't recommend just jumping in and taking any old probiotic, because taking a probiotic on top of already having a lot of gut issues can make things worse. So if you're somebody who doesn't really struggle with a lot of gut issues, you just want to be sure you're covering all your bases and you're setting yourself up for success long-term, starting a good probiotic is great. If you're somebody who does have a lot of gut issues, then starting with a very specific kind of probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii, that's a strain of probiotic. On the Gut Personal company, we have a product called the Booster. That's our probiotic for those with a lot of gut issues. That's where I recommend starting because it's very gentle. It's actually a probiotic yeast, not a probiotic bacteria. So it's a little bit different. And that's why it's actually going to help heal the gut and not cause any more issues. But if you're somebody who you're like, oh, no, I don't think that really applies to me, getting on a good, well-rounded probiotic can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. And so you brought up the gut brain connection. So I was just talking with someone the other day. So let's say someone sort of has a sensitive stomach, they have issues like stress goes to their stomach, but how do they distinguish when it's like stress is upsetting their stomach versus like, oh, could it be like something I'm eating or something else? So I don't know if you have any tips on that.
Yeah, such a great question. And I would say 9 times out of 10 are going to go hand in hand. So because the brain talks to the gut and the gut talks back to the brain, it's really a bi-directional line of communication there. And so if you're under any sort of stress, and the thing is that we live in a modern society where things are go, go, go. And I work with clients who come to me and, they'll say, I'll ask them about their stress and they're like, oh, I'm not stressed, not any more than the next person. But when we really start digging into it, this is where I really advise people to start getting really honest with yourself and start thinking about all the little things that maybe you aren't even thinking that stress on the body. So are you sleeping 8 hours per night? Are you skipping meals? That's a stress on the body. Are you eating balanced meals? Not, that's a stress on the body. Are you sitting in traffic every day when you're trying to get to work? That's a stress on the body. Are you typically somebody who's a late runner? You're always late to things, you're running out the door. That's a stress. Are you somebody who's overwhelmed? You have a lot on your plate. You're taking care of a family. You have a busy job. You have a side hustle. All of these things. And as you know, we kind of really start thinking about these, kind of going down the list. All my clients are always like, okay, wait, yeah, maybe I do have a little bit more stress in my life than I was even aware. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that everybody can be doing things every day to start working on their stress levels, doing things that bring us more into the rest and digest. And that's really going to affect your gut issues. If you have gut issues, you got to start working on that stress first and foremost. And that can make such a huge difference for you.
Yeah, I love what you said right at the end, sort of getting into that rest and digest, that really calming nervous system will probably help give you a hint if you're not feeling like you're in that, then it
Yeah,
could be that gut brain connection.
definitely.
Yeah. And so when do you suggest someone can sort of try some of these things out on their own versus like when someone actually needs some extra help?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few of these things that we've been talking about today that you can go ahead and start and try on your own. Things like bumping up your vegetables, getting half your plate to be vegetables. Things like working on your stress, working on your sleep, getting into rest and digest more often. And starting with those, maybe starting a probiotic that's appropriate for you and starting a magnesium supplement. Start there. If things are not improving, that's when it is time to reach out for some support. So like I said, in practice, I do a lot of testing. So I'm working with a lot of people who they've tried it all. They've been in this ringer for a while. They feel like they're doing everything right, yet they still are feeling like crap. That's when it's time to do a little bit of deeper diving and figure out, okay, what's going on in the gut? There's some, nasty gut bugs, some infection that can't be out dieted. You can have the most perfect diet, doing all the things right, but if you have an infection in the gut, you got to address the infection and if you want to start feeling better. So that's really when I suggest do the easy stuff first, those low-hanging fruit. If you're not feeling any better, then it's time to reach out for support to get some testing done, to really figure out the root cause, address that, and that's where we can really start seeing the needle move.
Yeah. And I know at the beginning you mentioned stool testing. And I had a quick question when you at the beginning said you could test gluten through stool testing.
Yeah.
A gluten sensitivity. So what is the difference between using the stool test or the blood test that tests for gluten sensitivity?
Yeah, so you can go, to your doctor, get a blood test. They also you can do biopsies where they'll test for celiac disease. Lots of different kinds of testing that you can do for gluten, and honestly, they're all great. The one that I use in my practice is stool testing. So we can actually measure antibodies against gluten molecules that are coming out via your poop. And so along with that, we can also look at your immune response. I'm looking at your species of bacteria. So kind of what I was talking about, taking any old probiotic is not appropriate for everybody because let's say you have a bunch of bacteria overgrowing in your gut. You don't want to be supplementing with a probiotic on top of that because then you're just adding fuel to the fire. So through this testing, I can actually measure your strains of bacteria and say, oh, you're low in this specific bacteria. Let's supplement with that specific strain of probiotic. And so that's a way that we can really personalize exactly what you need. And then, of course, I'm looking for any sort of infections, pathogens, parasites, fungal overgrowth, like that candida that we were talking about earlier. I can even measure how well my clients are breaking down their foods, how well they're absorbing their nutrients. So it's a lot of great data. And that's why it can be such a huge needle mover for those people who feel like they are just not feeling any better and really want to start making some forward momentum in fixing their gut.
Yeah. So do people typically do one stool test and it sort of tests for all that? Yeah.
Just one, and we get all of that. I mean, it's a 5-page printout of this information.
Yeah, that's nice because I know sometimes those can be pricey. So it's definitely good to try some other things first. But yeah, just get the help if you need it because it
Yes.
affects so much if your gut's not on
Yeah,
track.
absolutely. And I mean, not all tests are created equal either. I have some clients who come to me who say, I did a stool test with my doctor and it only tested for one thing and it came back normal. And it's like, well, you need a test that's a little bit more in depth than that. And you're right. I mean, it's sometimes, always covered by insurance, which can definitely be a barrier. So start with what you can. And if it's appropriate for you, and if you're at a stage in your life where you want to dive into that testing, then seeking out that support and doing it because it's so worth it just to feel good in your body.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Just investing in your health in general. If you feel stuck, it's so much easier to just get help from an expert and just like get really narrowed in on what you need to do to really stay consistent and just start feeling better.
I so agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's really what we do, or I work with my clients on. The company's called The Gut Fix. And so we're really fixing people's guts through this very targeted root cause approach. It's very personalized to them. And Gut Personal is the supplement side that we were kind of talking about before we started recording. And that's really where we're doing personalized gut healing supplements, because in the supplement space, really gut health in general, it needs to be so personalized because we're all different. We're all unique individuals. And that's sometimes where people can feel like they're doing all the things, but not feeling any better, but they're not doing something that's personalized to them and is appropriate for them.
Yeah, perfect. And then just let us know how people can reach you. And I don't know if you have a freebie or a free resource or anything.
Yes, absolutely. So Instagram is truly the best place to get into contact with me. That's where I have all my resources, some great freebies for people. So my Instagram is jilliansmith.rd. So it's JILLIANSMITH.RD for registered dietitian. So that's my handle on Instagram. That's really the best place. And then our company, it's called The Gut Fix. That's where we're doing a lot of testing. And then Gut Personal. So that's just one word, Gut Personal, is where we're doing the supplements. So those are really the best places to get in contact with me. And I always just tell people, send me a DM. I am in my direct messages on Instagram every single day. I love connecting with people. If you just have any questions, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, this really resonated with me, I'm struggling with bloating, what do you recommend? Send me a DM. I really do encourage all that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time to chat today. I really enjoy this and it's just really valuable. And I'm glad that we could hear from a dietitian about what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
You're welcome.